Hello there. Do you feel guilty as charged in anorexia recovery? Is guilt getting in the way of your full unrestricted eating and full resting and no more body weight suppression? Then watch the following video, like or subscribe, and peace. Hello there, my name is Billy Juliana. I'm 49 years old and I have a 40-year history of dealing with anorexia nervosa, and I'm currently following the recovery methods espoused by Tabitha Farrar, Kayla Rose Katecki, and Elisa Orris. And today I wanted to talk about guilt in anorexia recovery. I know a lot of people cover this on their YouTube channels because guilt is just a major issue for those of us who are trying to get liberated from this disease. So I thought I'd put in my 2 cents worth. Now, first I want to say that guilt is a broad topic, and so I'm going to have to narrow it down somewhat to fit into this particular video. But for me personally, as a youngster coming into the world, look, I would not be surprised if my first words were, "Excuse me." I mean, that was probably the first thing I uttered when I was able to talk. Excuse me, or pardon me. I just didn't ever feel like I had space on the earth enough for me. And so I was always feeling like I was bumping into someone, and I felt guilty for that. And so just my existence, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with existing in the world. And so, of course, anorexia comes marching in and gloms on to all of this, every single emotion inside my being and inside my head, and every thought and everything else, and uses all of that, enhances it just to keep the anorexic agenda alive. Now, anorexia marched into my life because I was overwhelmed and I went on a diet. And of course, this is a disease. This is a biological disorder that we have, but it's in the brain, and so it gets entangled with a bunch of psychological issues. And so normal human emotions like guilt or shame or fear or all that kind of stuff get completely intertwined with the anorexia. So it's very hard to extricate the emotion from the disease. And so that's one of the things that we're having to do as we go through anorexia recovery. And guilt is one of the main things that anorexia uses to keep itself alive and to keep itself strong. All right, so I'm going to treat you with a little bit of an anecdote here. You've been very patient with my anecdotes in the past, so here's another one. So about 20 years ago, I was working as a clerk in a law firm, and I had my own office, which was kind of nice. And I'd been out to lunch, and I went to a coffee house, and I got up to pay, probably just for coffee, but at the register there was a pile of beautiful, huge chocolate chip cookies, homemade looking, and they were all covered in cellophane, individually wrapped, but they just looked divine. And I was like, oh, and I love that kind of stuff. I love sweet foods. I've always loved sweets. So I'm at the register and I'm thinking, should I not, you know, that kind of thing. And of course I was like, okay, yeah. And so I bought it and I took it back to the office, and it made it as far as the office, but then I had to go into the kitchen and put it in the refrigerator because I just couldn't do it. I couldn't eat it. So, all right, I put it in the fridge for safekeeping while I mulled this over, and then I went to my office and did my work for the day. And when the day ended, I was like, goodbye, cookie. And I just left it there overnight. So the next day I come into work and I go to the office fridge and I open it up just to check on my cookie. It's like a pet. I'm like, how you doing? And I open up the fridge and my cookie is no longer this round, beautiful, kind of lumpy thing. It's a round, lumpy thing with an indentation in it, i.e. someone had taken a bite out of it and then put it back in there. And I'm like looking at it going, it was kind of shocking. It was a little upsetting. I was like, who touched my cookie and took a bite and put it back? Just like, excuse me, but I'm like, I was upset, but I was also laughing because I was like, this is such a kind of weird situation. Somebody knew that it was somebody else's cookie and then took a bite and put it back. Oh, well, whatever. So I was halfway angry and halfway amused at this, okay? So, but I went back to my desk and I was like, all right, fine. fair play. I'm going to send an office email to everyone in the office saying that there's a mouse in the house, saying that we have a mouse in our kitchen and it went into the refrigerator and took a big nibble out of my cookie. And so I did. I sent this office-wide. Now, this is a medium-sized firm. This is no small one-man shop. Nope. This is a lot of people in this firm, a lot of workers, a lot of partners, a lot of associates. You get the picture. So here comes my broadcast email accusing someone of taking a bite out of my cookie in a fairly nice way. So the day went on and I didn't hear much about it. But then finally a partner comes to my doorway and he leans on the door jamb and he says, "I'm the one who took the bite out of your cookie." And he was not amused. He did not think my email was funny. And he was like, "I saw it in there. I was working the late shift and I was hungry and it looked good and I didn't think it belonged to anyone. So I took a bite out of it and I put it back." And so here we were both. I felt bad in that instance. I was like, oh no, I have done something wrong. I have made a transgression by sending this office-wide email that I at first thought was funny, but to the actual person who actually did this, it might not come across as funny. So, oops. So I felt guilty in that instance. However, the partner in the law firm also felt guilty because he had taken a bite out of someone else's cookie. And now the whole office knew. Of course, he came to me anonymously. He was like, "Hello, I did it. Don't tell anyone." But, you know, it's still, everybody knew that there was a guilty person in the office. So I'm trying to paint a picture here of complete and utter guilt. Guilt on my end and guilt on the partner's end. So what would have solved the situation? You guessed it. If I had eaten the cookie when I bought it, when I wanted it. Of course, I wanted it the next day as well, too. But it had a bite by the time I got back. I needed to eat it when I bought it, when I got it at first. That's the simple answer to this equation that would have resolved all the guilt. All right, so the reason why I tell that anecdote is for a few reasons, and one of them isn't related to guilt and anorexia recovery, but I think it's important anyway, and that is mental hunger. 20 years ago, I was buying that cookie because I had huge mental hunger. I did not know that back then. I did not know anything about mental hunger and what that was until 2.5 years ago when I started working with this method of recovery. So I have been in the dark on this for a long time, far too long. And so back in the day, I was told that the reason why I thought about food all the time was because I was a food addict. And so I was always going to have to watch my relationship with food. Even though I came from a starved background, I was always going to have to watch how I ate and manage how I ate and get into sort of this narrow lane that was the perfect balance of weight and food and stay there for the rest of my life. Now you can see how this is quite restrictive right here, and it only enhances the restrictive mindset that is just sitting in my brain. So too bad. A lot of time went by without my knowing about mental hunger and what it really was. Now, in the moment when I bought that cookie, I think there was a part of me that instinctively knew that the whole food addict premise was not really correct, that it didn't really apply. And so that's what got me to the point where I bought the cookie, but I just couldn't make it all the way to the table in the lounge room in the kitchen at our office and eat it because guilt came in. And that is anorexia took all of the data that it had gleaned from previous treatments for anorexia and made it into a guilt issue. So I was a food addict. That's pretty much a guilty thing to be. And then I needed to watch how I was dealing with food. And cookies were not on the agenda. So this was a guilty thing to do. So I felt guilty about it, and so I never ate it. I also felt a lot of fear about it too. So guilt and fear kind of coincide here. And I just want to mention that. The other thing I want to mention too is that I don't really want to dog all of treatment that I had and call myself a victim and all this kind of thing. However, I will dog a lot of treatment that is out there because it is kind of whack. But I just think that this disease is so misunderstood. Even today, even with all of the eating disorders coaches out there that are preaching this method of recovery, I think that there is still a lot of misperception about anorexia and what it is and what it does. I think that the migration theory of anorexia is correct. I think that there is also a huge psychological component going on as well, especially for those of us who are older, because the anorexia has gotten enmeshed, as I said, with our psychologies. Okay, so that was just an aside. But guilt is one of the main ways in which anorexia has gotten enmeshed with my emotions, and it's picking up data from all around in order to enhance that guilt feeling. So in that moment, guilt got the better of me and I didn't eat the cookie. So how does that apply to the here and now? Oh, okay, big time. Because this method of recovery actually says you need to eat that cookie. That cookie is necessary. And I have been told all this time that no, it's not necessary. And I have thought, of course, and feared that it would do bad things to me. So I've just been in this bind. And so this method of recovery is like, no, you need to change that whole entire way of thinking and eat that cookie and the whole bound that was sitting there by the register. And then you need to go and eat other things, and you need to eat more, and you need to sit down and you need to rest. And so while this is music to my ears in some ways, because it's what I've always wanted to do, that has been what instinctively I knew I needed to do. And here it is being propounded by these wonderful people that have figured it out. I'm like, oh, because over time, like I said, anorexia has just gotten so enmeshed with all of my emotions and stuff that it trots them all out and keeps me stuck. Now, I've been able to override that with all of the strength and the courage that these people out there in recovery have shown me through their recoveries. And so I've done really, really well, gotten farther along in my own recovery journey than I have ever gotten in my entire life. I mean, people around me that know me are pretty much amazed. So kudos to those who have helped me get to where I am now. But it has taken a long time. And guilt has been one of the primary issues that I've had, because sitting down and eating a load of food and resting spikes my guilt component, because I'm used to being responsible for stuff and doing stuff. And even though it might be minor, it might not be of great effect on the rest of society. It might just be helping out with, doing the laundry or something like that. It is something to me that is productive. So doing what is unproductive and actually making a point not to do something productive seems very alien and odd. And then guilt just blows up like a mushroom cloud, and I'm like, oh, I feel so bad about this. Let me just go make a bed. I need to go tidy up. It's that kind of thing starts blowing up. And so that's when my lower level movement starts kicking in. Like I need to go do things. I need to do something. And that will help assuage some of this guilt, by the way, is by doing something. So that's how this guilt feeling will get in the way of full-on recovery. And so a lot of us, though, also attach a huge moral issue to the eating and the resting. A lot of us get to the point where we are thinking in religious terms, like, higher powers are not wanting us to eat this much. Higher powers are not wanting us to rest this much. In fact, we are indulging in mortal sins. We're indulging in gluttony, and we're indulging in sloth. And I just want to say that I need to scrap all of this. I need to scrap all of my learning that I have ever heard about what is good for moral cleansing. I need to scrap that, because I always need to keep at the forefront of my mind that I come from a starved background. And I come from a battle zone where I've been running around for years, dodging bullets and not eating. And in order to survive, and in order to liberate myself from this kind of false battle zone that I've been in, I need to literally sit down and eat loads of food. And I know that sounds alien to people who don't have this disease, who might look at us and make comments and say, what are you doing? Why don't you get up and do something? And that will just feed the guilt. I'm just saying, hold on. In order to get 100% recovered, I need to go through the entire journey. I can't stop along the way. I can't stop when I hit the normal BMI zone if I'm not 100% recovered yet, which I'm not. So I have to keep going. I have to keep doing this. I need to always keep at the forefront of my mind that I am someone who comes from an embattled, deprived zone. And so the only way to get myself free of that is to just do the opposite of what the embattled, deprived zone has had me doing for all these years. And so it's hard because there is a lot of feeling that is involved in this. A lot of emotion gets brought out in the doing. And so that's what makes this work extra hard. And like I said, other people are on the outside looking in going, this doesn't look very hard. Wish I had some of that. And I understand people don't get it, and so they're going to make comments like that. But it's just necessary for me to block that stuff out and to continue doing what I need to do, which is actually super difficult for someone coming from this background with all this mindset about needing to do something and with all this moral attachment to depriving myself and to keeping myself busy or being productive in some way. So again, guilt at bottom just needs to be swept out along with fear and all of that kind of stuff. Of course, that's easier said than done. Everything about this disease is easier said than done. But again, anorexia has attached itself to all emotions, especially the negative ones, like I said, and it blows them up and out of proportion in order to keep me stuck in anorexia. So I always have to keep at the forefront of my mind where I come from. I always have to keep at the forefront of my mind that I want liberation from anorexia. I always have to keep at the forefront of my mind that I want to live. I always have to keep at the forefront of my mind that this is what I need to do. I always have to keep at the forefront of my mind that I have to act against every negative emotion that gets in my way, and that is constant. So that's where the work comes in. We may look like we're being idle and indulgent. Believe me, we're constantly working. At least I am. So having said that, I'm going to go do some more work. So everyone, please eat unrestrictedly, rest for a prolonged period, no more body weight suppression, and until next time, take care and peace.